Armory is a software company that just raised $40 million to sell to their enterprise clients. What can we learn from their product positioning, and what are some areas that they may be either failing or missing opportunities? We're going to dive into that in today's episode of the Product Positioning Teardown. What's up, everyone? I'm Daniel, and today we're looking at Armory. And we're going to be looking at their product positioning from the perspective of a target buyer. And a target buyer is typically asking a lot of questions, but three in particular that we're going to focus on. What do you do? What is your product? And why should I care? Are they positioning their product? Are they messaging their product in a way that is clear, that is consistent, and that is aligned around a compelling and captivating value proposition? So without further ado, let's dive right in. Let's look at their website. We're going to start with first impressions. So I just did a Google search for them. They empower devs to deploy code with safety, resilience, and velocity, basically faster and better, to any cloud or on-prem production target. No comment yet. Let's move on to YouTube. So on YouTube, we can see that they've actually simplified their value proposition to say we help software teams ship better software faster. Now, that's pretty much in line with it. I think that's vague enough that, or broad enough that pretty much any company that has any product will say, hey, we help you do something better and faster. So I don't think that's very unique in that way. But this is pretty cool. Software is the highest leverage way to improve humanity. This is basically saying something they believe. And it's, I think, a great way to set your brand apart and command respect, or have this impression of you being the leader because you have a strong belief. And then you're going to celebrate customers that are doing that, and you're going to share stories around that, and you're going to build this whole persona around your brand. So if you think of your brand as a person, well, this is someone who believes in software as the highest leverage way to improve humanity. And let's see if they build on that. I'm not sure if they will. We're going to be exploring this together. Now, if we go over to Armory's website, seems to be a shift here. Collaborate from code to cloud. They unlock collaboration so that you can innovate with speed and safely. So to me, this is a complete shift of focus. Are you either empowering my developers to basically move faster and produce, better software, or are you unlocking collaboration between my teams? For example, there's the security team and the operations team. There's, other teams that support the developers, of course, and work with them. So are you helping me unlock that so that I can innovate faster? To me, it's not clear yet. So immediately, I would say there's a bit of a lack of cohesion in their value proposition. Let's keep going, though, and let's see how it develops and builds out. So trusted by global innovators, powers the world's leading enterprises. I think this is great. They're telling their target buyer either, hey, you're the right person for us, and you're going to be among good company with other contemporaries of global, market leaders in whatever space, or hey, you're a smaller company, you're not really the right person for this. So I think that's really great. And here they're telling us what they do. So they're answering that question as well. We scale Spinnaker for the enterprise. So a lot of what they talk about is going to be Spinnaker, which is this free open source software, and Armory bundled together. But here they're just clearly differentiating and saying, hey, what we're doing is making sure that you can actually implement this in your enterprise, because there's probably a whole lot of potholes and pitfalls and things that just don't work, and we're going to get it all up and running smoothly for you. And probably some additional tools and things like that to make sure that the process is smooth. So I think that's great. It says, what they do, who they are. Now, here we go back to that value proposition that we saw on the Google search result snippet. And I would say that these, let's just say, key benefits: more resilient software, accelerated delivery, make sure you're compliant, deploy anywhere you want, whether that's your own data centers that you own, or somewhere in the cloud like AWS or Google or Azure. Those, to me, seem to be in line with empowering developers and empowering your development team. So I almost want to ignore the whole code to cloud collaboration piece, and would say that their value proposition is really around this, and accelerating and probably automating a lot of the process of getting your stuff from the code that the developers are coding to the cloud where they're hosting it. So here we have, again, collaborate from code to cloud. I bet some marketer did some experiments and found that this increased the click-through rate, and so then they just got it as their tagline, code to cloud. So when it comes to describing what they're doing and how they add value, I think it's great. I'm not going to dig too deep into it. I want to take a step back now and kind of look at the big picture here. And by the way, if you have any comments on it, please let me know. Tell me about it. Tell me if you disagree or if you have a different opinion on some of this stuff. I would love to read it and hear your thoughts. So let's do a quick recap. Their consistency and their clarity in their messaging when it comes to their product features and what they do, I think that's clear. When it comes to their value proposition and the things and those features all being in line with the value proposition, I would say because of that, some of the differences I saw there, that could be improved. But now let's talk about the value proposition itself. And let's take for granted for a second that their value proposition is somewhere along the lines of, we empower your devs to deploy better software faster. So let's take a look at that here. Now, let's imagine it like an impact chain. Well, why should I care about my devs deploying better software faster? Not to mention it's very vague. Everyone will claim that they do that, but that doesn't tell me anything about how you do, what's unique about it, etc. So they might go one step further and say, well, when that happens, you are able to deploy this resilient software as fast as you code it. So as fast as you can code it, boom, you're able to just be having it in production, getting feedback, and not having it break your system. That's a pretty cool promise, and that might be more compelling. I'm not saying it is. These are just some things I brainstorm, within a few seconds. I'd be curious to see if you have any comments. Put them below. But again, maybe then we could go a step further and say, well, why would you want to deploy software as fast as you can code it? Well, because then you can make software your most powerful lever. They're the key to your innovation and competitiveness. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, then you can dominate your market. And of course, at that point, we've gone just way too broad, and anyone can make that claim again, right? Oh, we're going to help you become the world leader. So you want to take a few steps back and maybe have it somewhere in the realm of something that's tangible, something that's unique, and something that's hard for them to achieve without you. Something that kind of captures their aspirations and at the same time is something that they can actually understand what it's going to feel like or be like when they get there. So I would put it probably around one of these two. I think the list of things that they're going to help you do somewhat falls short. Let me just see, where do they have it here? Empowering your devs to deploy code with safety, resilience, velocity to any cloud or on-prem. To me, that's just like a huge mouthful. That's a lot. It's definitely not catchy and not memorable. So I think that could be clarified and made sure that without just oversimplifying it and making it too vague, go down the impact chain and find a good point where it's really delivering, showing the value that they're going to create. And obviously one good way to do this is to talk to customers. That leads me onto one last point. I looked at their demo online. It's their most watched video. And their CEO refers to these different stages of a company. And he says, we help companies get from stage 1 to stage 5, in essence. But there's no context as to what those companies are and why should we care about being a stage 5 company versus a stage 1 company. I think here they have a lot of opportunity to build out a whole narrative. And instead of pushing their product, they could push or they could sell their target buyers on a change that's happening in the world. And it could go something like this. There are the traditionalists. They've been deploying software. They've been doing it the same way for years. And it was fine for a time. But then a new kind of company came out and it went through different stages of development. But where they're at now, what it has evolved to are the automators. They automate everything from the coding to the point of deployment. And they have all the T's crossed, the I's dotted. They have their whole team synced in and dialed in and making sure everything's running properly. And the result of that is instantaneous deployment or near instantaneous deployment to any cloud from that developer who is coding it, and just reducing that whole, that whole development cycle and release cycle. Well, then what happens? And then you kind of lay out what the stakes are. Well, the companies that were doing it the old way, they're not able to keep up. They're not innovating as fast. They're dying out. And maybe some examples of how that's happening. And Netflix and Google and some of the companies that have done that. Obviously, Google's ubiquitous. Maybe some Netflix or some other examples that are a little, more relatable. And then from there, they can present their product, their tools as a way to keep you from dying and help you achieve that next level of, let's just say, near instantaneous deployment. And what's powerful about that is you have then you've opened your customers' eyes to a new way to see the world, a new reality that they hadn't realized before. You're immediately an expert, you're immediately a trusted leader, and you're not selling them your product in as much as you are just going to help them compete and win in that new world. Your product is like the gift or the tools and the things that they're going to need to be able to do that and help them along the way. So that is actually taken a lot from Andy Raskin's work on creating a brilliant sales narrative. You can read more about it on LinkedIn or the different places where he posts. It's definitely great stuff, and I think they have an opportunity to do that here. So let's just do a quick recap. I think number one, there can be better consistency across their value proposition. Number two, I think a value proposition could be explored further to see what is the best way, what is the most impactful and unique value proposition that customers are going to get excited about and find compelling and captivating and just be memorable. Number three, I think there's an opportunity to build that narrative and then use it in demos online, use it in demos on YouTube, use it in different white papers and things they produce. For example, the death of traditionalists in software companies or something along those lines, or the rise of automation, et cetera, showing that there's this new way and adding some fuel to that fire. And it could also take the form of customer feedback, customer videos, case studies, things like that. And it's, again, all building on this narrative and almost validating this narrative and this change in the world. And then all their features are positioned from the perspective of, we're just helping you compete and win in this new world. Well, I hope you found this entertaining and educational. Let me know what you thought about it. I'll be answering to each comment that I see. And yeah, see you next time.